Hello and welcome to the Selling Impact podcast, the show in which we speak to innovative, sustainable solutions about their journey of bringing this to the market and actually making the impact that they want to have. The show is all about the business, sales, marketing, and growth side of what it means to run an impact business. You're now listening to the first episode with Kevin from GCX. He is the founder and has been in the sustainability space for 18 years now. He has specifically been helping large corporate and large multinationals on their journey on becoming sustainable. That's what his company does, and that's what his company specializes in. In this episode, he will speak on how to set himself apart from all the other sustainable consultants that there are, and how he has managed to provide so much value and make such complex multinational organizations actually more sustainable. Keep in mind, this is the first episode of this podcast, therefore, it is not perfect. The audio is not perfect. My questions were not perfect. I might have used a little bit of too much jargon if you're not in the sustainability space yourself. But either way, I really appreciate you listening to this, and for sure, there will be tons of improvement in the future. I'm happy to have you listening and enjoy the episode. Thanks for
Thank,
hopping on the podcast. I'm very happy to have you on the show and hear about your experience. Thanks for joining.
Cheers. Thanks for the invitation. Looking forward to our discussion.
Perfect. First, I want a bit of an introduction on you. And the question I want to ask you to do this is because, of course, you've been in the sustainability space for quite a long time, over 20 years, if I understand correct. I would love to start this with the story of what got you interested in it at first, at a moment where there was not so much interest as there is now, not even close. So, would love to hear about your experience there and also tell a bit about your background in the space.
Okay, so not quite 20 years, just short, 18 years I've been in it, but long enough to know enough about it. I actually don't have a sustainability background academically. I got an accounting background. I was an entrepreneur my whole life since 21 through various different enterprises and sectors. It was in Australia where I was actually volunteering for Greenpeace at the time, but still involved in internet and marketing type businesses that I became passionate about sustainability. And it was at the time where I decided to align my passion and my mission with my career. And for the last 18 years, I've done exactly that. And I'm involved with quite a few what I call impact entrepreneurial enterprises, where I'm hoping to do well from doing good. Yeah. So yeah, I'm an impact entrepreneur focused on quite a few enterprises in this space.
That's fantastic. Okay, and today we're going to be speaking specifically on GCX. Would you mind giving a bit of introduction on that, and also what you've been doing the last years in what market and what you provide to your client?
Okay, so it's been quite a journey, as entrepreneurial enterprises generally are. Also, early stages in sustainability has never been easy because a lot of companies weren't that interested in it. But certainly in the last 5 years, the sustainability agenda has advanced significantly. Always had a vision for the company in that we would be able to help companies transform into more responsible, sustainable enterprises. However, it's a very complex systemic issue, sustainability, right? So I always find it quite hard to focus on one thing and instead find myself focusing on the system at large, which what made it quite difficult, especially with limited resources, to build a business like that, but had all the pieces of the puzzle that I was collecting over the years. But I think in the last couple of years, for the first time, those pieces of the puzzle have formed the right picture that aligns with what my vision was always. And that was really where we've landed up, is a technology-enabled sustainability solutions company, an end-to-end service provider to large blue-chip corporations, complex multinational organizations, to authentically partner with them and help them transform their organizations into more sustainable enterprises. And it's quite exciting. I would say we're quite unique, although I'd say most company leaders believe that their companies are unique, but I do believe we are. we are a technology company, and we're a sustainability company. So we are as adept at both of those disciplines as the other. I always felt that technology was going to be the thing that helped us drive environmental and social justice in this world, because we could get the transparency from that. And the last 5 to 10 years, this whole digital transformation has allowed us to do unbelievable things in order to be able to locate and identify data, bring it into one place, and do interesting things with that data to be able to provide the visibility that we require in order to drive the change that's required and drive a positive impact. So we do that, and it's the areas of expertise that we are working across are zero waste to landfill, and we've got a separate company called Zero Waste Technologies that is also, we're a shareholder in, that helps. It's an engineering company that helps companies transform through a roadmap type of methodology, from understanding the current state right through to independently certified zero waste to landfills enterprise-wide. But it's an engineering company, so we actually help with developing the innovative solutions for that last mile of waste that can't actually be processed into anything valuable. And we are doing that all the time with doing waste to energy, waste to building materials, etc. Then the utilities, we're using IoT and IoT sensors and really state-of-the-art smart metering to be able to help our customers understand in real time what their assets are consuming across electricity, LPG, gas, diesel, water, solar, etc., time of use, etc., to be able to help those companies in the most cost-effective way to be able to use in energy. So in South Africa, we've got a bit of an energy crisis as well as a waste crisis and a water crisis. No shortage of crises in South Africa. And we use this kind of technology for companies to make the right decisions around how to manage their operations in the most sustainable and cost-effective way. So it gives us great data. It gives us the kind of information required to develop the decarbonization studies that they need, as well as to implement them. And then most importantly in South Africa, it gives the companies a lot of relief around costs, because we are able to drive cost savings in quite a big way. And the business model there is to actually do that in a way that we're incentivized to do that. And then the third area of expertise is decarbonization. And not just reporting. We were doing that for many years. It really was frustrating with companies ticking boxes and doing carbon footprint assessments. We're actually helping with the development of the decarbonization plans as well as the implementation. So we're a performance management company. We're about driving that positive impact. And then finally, and more recently, ESG, which, because we have this platform that we've developed to be able to do all these fantastic things with data, our clients have asked us if we could also add the ESG profile into one place so that we could actually provide them with full visibility across their sustainability spectrum to be able to give them what they need to make the right decisions. So those are areas of expertise. It's very wide. It covers the ambit of corporate sustainability. But then on the other side, we've got all the advisory capabilities to be able to do all these studies for these clients, the net zero studies, the ESG studies, the strategy stuff, and then we're able to embed that into the software and as a managed service or standalone software, and then we use that to be able to set and drive baselines and targets and milestones, and we with our clients all along the way to be able to ensure that they keep on the right trajectory towards achieving those goals and targets. Yeah.
So Kevin, that is exactly the reason why I thought it was super interesting to have you on this show as well, because of course there are tons of sustainability consultants, also software companies that aim to help enterprises with the sustainability and just compliance, right? What I really like about you have a bunch of tools in your toolkit, right? And that's what you can use all of those to actually bring your clients forward, not just ticking boxes, but actually bringing them forward, setting up a strategy and implementing it as well. I am curious as to what your experience has been. Of course, this is on a podcast is on selling sustainability. What your experience has been in selling yourselves to these large enterprises, especially because they tend to compare multiple companies. Maybe they're comparing you to sustainability consultants, to whatever other type of solutions. How do you compare to them, and how have you been able to stand out to be working with some of those large companies?
So I feel quite blessed because of the uniqueness of our offering and our unique value proposition, right? Because we're not consultants, and while many consultants call themselves partners to their clients, they're just words. But we have been partners to some of the largest blue chip organizations in South Africa since 2008, and we're now doing their 2050 strategy. So these long-term, deep, meaningful relationships are testimony to the fact that we're doing something right, and there's a huge amount of goodwill in these relationships. I think it's because the whole journey thing, and this is also very visible in the metaphor that we use for all our branding, is that we are on a journey, right? We're on a journey to sustainability. In fact, we're on a journey to beyond sustainability, because sustainability, the status quo, is actually not enough. And our brand of sustainability is to go beyond. And what that journey is, it's like any journey, Kiers. It's about being adequately prepared up front. So to have the right, to have the right roadmap and, know exactly where you're going so you don't go off course. To be able to monitor everything, and that's why we developed Dash, our data analytics sustainability hub, is to be able to take all this data. And in the sustainability world, no matter who you speak to, sustainability data is disorganized. It's a mess. It's all over the show. And we are there to fix that problem. Then it's about driving the positive impact, enhancing things, and to make sure that our clients have got all the options available to them, but the business cases for those options which we provide to them, and they can make the right decisions. And then the communication side, reporting, integrated reporting, internal social ethics committee reporting, marketing and communications. We have everything that's in a very organized repository that's verifiable, that the client can then unlock the value through these communications to the various stakeholders. So for me, as certainly a CEO of GCX, it's actually, we're blessed because there's no selling engagement or with a prospect where there's something that they don't need. So getting back to your question around, what is it that we do when I'm engaging with a new opportunity and I know nothing about, firstly, I try and be properly prepared, and our team of business development specialists and customer success specialists, we're trying to figure out, well, who are we dealing with here? What kind of company? What is the culture? What can we see in the public domain that we can actually use as nuggets in this meeting to be able to leverage? So we want to know from what's in the public domain. And to be honest, you can take that as with a pinch of salt, because a lot of the companies in the public domain, what they're putting out there is not verifiable. You scratch a little bit deeper, there's not a lot of proof and substance beneath it, and that's what we're trying to find out, right? But we really want to know what they're claiming they are doing, and then to understand what's the truth about that. So, and then we have a bit of a dance, right? And what's the dance all about? It's about understanding the maturity of the prospect, right? Which isn't always evident in the reporting side, is to figure out where are they in this journey, right? A lot of companies are reporting nicely and they're doing integrated reports. They've got flashy world with beautiful typeset and nice words and beautiful pictures. And they've done a bit of solar energy and they've got that on their roofs, and they've started on on the right side of the journey, but haven't prepared properly, and they haven't got in the monitoring tools. They're still using Excel to do everything, and they're a bit disorganized. We figured that out very quickly, okay, because they've confused, having a good ROI for solar or for energy efficiency is just good business. It's not really a very, high up in the data hierarchy, but they've done some things and they talk a lot about them. So the maturity of a customer or prospect is very, very important. I think the person that we're dealing with, to understand maturity, the person that we're dealing with, their personality, their position in the organization in terms of how much authority and how much influence they have is critical, okay? Because that tells us, who do they report to? Are they in the marketing department? Are they in the facilities department? Are they in the strategy department? Are they in the finance department? These are all things that speak heaps to actually how a company sees sustainability, or how the leadership of a company sees sustainability. And often in marketing, we know it's just an opportunity to say more than they're doing. If it's sitting in facilities, they're seeing sustainability as, driving energy management and putting solar panels on roofs. If it's sitting in strategy, that's interesting, right? Because all of a sudden, they see this as a strategic imperative, and hopefully as one that needs to be embedded into their business strategy. Okay, if they're seeing it as the finance people, well, that's hala to be able to see finance people talking sustainability, because ultimately it's all converging towards the finance department, where CFOs are going to be seen as chief value officers in the future, with a wider view about what value actually means to an organization, both tangible and intangible. So these are all the things we're trying to figure out: was who are we dealing with? And then I suppose, what is the leadership of the company? What are they really about? Is this just something that they're getting so much pressure from everywhere? Where's the pressure coming from? Because at the moment, it's market forces that are driving this. Yes, there's regulation and there's a lot of pressure, regulatory pressure and compliance pressure on companies to do certain things properly. In the EU specifically, where you are, Kiers, it's phenomenal. There's the latest laws that have come out. They are complex regulations and significant consequences to not being compliant with those. So this has become very serious, right? So that's obviously it's pressure, but in other places, there's not as much pressure. So why are people doing it? Do they want sustainable finance? Or do they want a good ESG ranking so they can ensure that there's liquidity in their shares? Do they want to satisfy the private equity companies and VCs to ensure, because they've got this as part of their criteria for due diligence, etc., and to manage a fund that's got all these things in place? Is it just for all the other stakeholders in the organization, their customers who are demanding them, if it's a B2B thing or a B2C thing, or is it because they are, there are multiple stakeholders that are putting pressure on companies to do the right thing right now? So we try and we figure all this out, and then strategically within the organization, what is it why are they really doing it? It's quite rare, but increasingly common that leadership in organizations are coming to us and say, we're doing this because it's the right thing to do. Because traditionally, up until now, I haven't seen that altruism is a big driver for driving a very, ambitious sustainability strategy, right? But more and more, I'm seeing leaders emerging inside companies where they're saying, listen, because there's various tiers within a sustainability hierarchy. Part of the dance we do, and I call it a dance because we're trying to figure out what's going on, and we're trying to train our people or to educate them to be able to have this dance and figure out where clients are in terms of the maturity. But, there's lots of customers or prospects that are just doing it from a compliance mindset, ISO 14,000, 9,000, 50,000. What are the ISO standards? Integrated risk management. What's the value to that? Well, the value is that you don't get into trouble for not doing something. So it's a negative value, right? You don't get credit for compliance.
Just to interrupt you there, this is also for the audience. This is something that I really see some really successful companies, really successful sustainable companies set themselves apart from the less successful ones that have it harder with growth. Because what you're talking about is having a deep understanding of your customer. That is what you have centralized, right? You want to have a deep understanding of what is happening inside of the company, who has what role, and what pressures are coming in from the outside. You want to understand their exact motivation, and that is what you take as a starting point, right? That's how you start a conversation. You call it a dance, but very much an interesting one. I'm curious though, on this topic, right? There will be companies that might be more compliance driven, so you might notice after a while they're just looking for compliance, not really looking to do it on the long term. Do you still work with these companies? Do you see that as a kind of a foot in the door? What I see a lot of sustainable companies do, and do you effectively market yourself that way to target those companies to then on build it up from there, or what would your approach be in that area?
So it's a really great question, Kiers. We work with any company, listed, large or unlisted, complex organizations, because we believe that much of the positive impact required to transform this world into a better place is through the influence and resources that these significant organizations have. So that's the one thing. The other thing is dealing with existing corporations that sometimes have been around for hundreds of years, and to retrofit sustainability in them is not an easy thing. In fact, probably the biggest challenge is not a sustainability issue, it's a change management or change implementation issue, right? Which is something we're starting to integrate into our methodology. Is it's actually behavioral psychology, actually. What makes companies tick. So do we deal with every company? Yes, we do, unless there are companies that are engaged in business or knowing controversies, around labor, around negative environmental practices. We're not there to spin companies to tell a better story. That's not, and we can see it straight on, early on in the engagement. This is what and we do get approached a lot to help do that, and we can see it coming. Okay, so we stay away from that. the various levels of sustainability we can work with, right? Because as long as we're showing business value along the way, and that's what companies want to see, okay? They want to see, right, what is the business value? And that's something we are doing a good job inside GCX, is because we're developing this nerve center in our organization that brings us all together. How do we collaborate as a team with our success specialists to be able to, one, get confidence in the data, two, automate all the reporting, the data and the processes, and three, drive a measurable positive impact across everything that we do? Those are our three areas of success, right? It starts off in compliance, and many companies will come to us with an integrated risk management system. Like I say, you don't get credit for it, but at least it's a management system that says they've identified the material issues and they're doing something about it in a very, very disciplined and rigorous way, right? In South Africa, we've got another level above that, which is really about business continuity risk. Still a risk, okay? It's because you can't take water provision, there's water scarcity, there's a shortage of energy, it's going up in price significantly every year. The landfills are closing up. We make sure that we manage that risk. It's still not an opportunity yet, though. Okay. And a lot of companies have engaged in all those things, storage, solar, water efficiency, zero waste to landfill, but it's actually been from a business continuity perspective. But that's good. We'll take it. It's advanced the sustainability agenda significantly. If you go over and above that and you start talking about, putting in a proper environmental social management plan and incorporating change management, that's when you're building something for sustainability, right? And we will encourage companies to do this properly, because you wouldn't have a financial enterprise with no financial systems, for example. So that's when we bring in our whole management system. And then you start with organizational resource and process efficiency and driving that, as well as alternative energy. And then above that, it's circularity and decarbonization, value chain sustainability towards the whole net zero story, science-based targets. And at the top of this pyramid, if you can look at it like a pyramid, is positive social impact, net positive, regenerative agriculture, regeneration, basically putting back more than you've taken out. The value to the business from the bottom of this pyramid, starting at compliance, to the top, which is brands like Interface Carpets, Patagonia, where you just see the logo and you just, we don't have to ask questions. There's an intangible value to that brand that people just want to have a puffer jacket from Patagonia because they know the association of that puffer jacket with an organization that's got great leadership, that is driving an authentic sustainability agenda, and they want to actually just be associated with that brand. Does that make sense? Yes.
Yeah, I love that. I love that example. Patagonia is, I believe, one of the best examples of exactly that. Right? It's truly they've done a fantastic way in also building that brand. I'm very curious what you said about that continuity, though. I found it very interesting that businesses are seeing this as kind of from a fear perspective as well. They know these environmental issues are gonna influence their business, and that's why they're looking at it from a continuity perspective, which in turn means that they're working on it on a strategic level, right? And that is a super interesting one to me, that you see that happening. That's a very interesting take, I believe. Do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think it's particularly in the EU now with ESG, there's a thing called materiality. Okay, a company identifying the risks, material risks to their business based on their activities within a certain sector. There's something called double materiality, which is really what they're doing over there. And what our brand is to understand, one is, what is the company's impact on society, and what is the changing or degrading environment and society's impact on the company, the finances. Single materiality is where it started, and everyone wants to know, well, what's the impact of these things on the commercial state of our company and our ability to be sustainable from a financial perspective. What we want to see is, what is a company's impact on society and environment. So, this is very useful to companies right now. This is not just stuff that's, a whole woke agenda, part of a woke agenda. I also caution, though, that it is an ESG agenda. Okay. So while these things are fantastic, because you need to understand what your risks are before you can turn them into an opportunity. And that's when they become valuable. All right. And so I think the thing that I do need to stipulate, while I am speaking about ESG, I'm also, after 18 or so years in this business, when it comes to these things, is I'm very circumspect about these kind of frameworks and things, because at the end of the day, It's part of a sustainability agenda. We don't do ESG strategies, we do sustainability strategies. The ESG is just a framework for reporting that helps companies, it dumbs sustainability down, makes it relevant for what they're doing, and it can help them in terms of consistently reporting and framing it in a certain way. So yeah, just a couple of things I wanted to throw in there.
Yeah, for sure. I think that is these type of things, ESG and those type of things, is also what kind of generates this, especially among people that are not involved with sustainability, this kind of idea that it's wishy-washy type of talk, right? Whereas if you look at it from a pure continuity strategic level, that is when it really gets into it, right? And that's what it should be about. And those ESG frameworks, from my opinion, they're not perfect, right? Nowhere near, but they can be that starting point. And starting at compliance is maybe not the ideal place to start, but at least it's a start, right? And I find it interesting that you play into that as well, and that you work with every company to bring it over.
And just sorry, just on that though, our fastest growing part of our business is companies doing a strategy. What's this ESG stuff? Because most companies and their leaders are not even literate in this stuff, let alone they're quite overwhelmed by it. So it's a fantastic opportunity to do it properly. But what I do caution against is that, once again, like any framework, it's hackable. Okay, it can very fast become something that a company can manipulate to their advantage, can use as a tick box exercise. So we use it as something, but we're very mindful that's what it is, but it needs to transform into something more meaningful over time.
Exactly. Okay, I want to dive into something else, because of course, to have this impact and to start working with these companies, you first have to get in there. That's the marketing and sales, right? From what I hear from you, it seems like you have really built your company on a great service, providing a great service, having a strong toolkit, and having just solutions to their problems instead of actively trying to push things forward, right? But what I'm curious about is, with that approach, of course, you've really built a great name for yourself from the work that you're doing with multinationals, big enterprises in South Africa and that area. Right now, you were talking to me as well, you're looking at expanding. I think it's very interesting for this audience to hear what type of challenges come with that. As for a company that is so built on providing that great service, that word of mouth, those long-term relationships, when all of a sudden you kind of aim to get outside of that bubble, what challenges come into that?
I think it's very important to understand the drivers, right? And companies at different levels of the maturity, like I said, as well as with different resourcing realities, okay? And it's to be not prescriptive about what companies need to do. We need to know what they need to do. But when we engage with a customer first time, we're not saying to them, you need to do this in this order, okay? Because firstly, what I described to you, prepare, monitor, enhance, etc., is not a linear thing. It's a continuum of continuous improvement. But we can start appealing to their current reality, their current state, and where they are and how they perceive sustainability. If they want to see immediate cost savings without spending any money, we've got something for it, okay? Because we can just focus on utilities in a certain space and all their big consuming items. We've got a business model that can do things without much CapEx, very little OpEx, but just deliver massive savings to the company. And no one's going to argue with that, right? And everyone says, okay, well, here's a company that's going to be accountable for the outcome of the engagement. They're not asking us for too much money. Let's go through this process. If a company, has got specific requirements around reporting, or they're asking for strategic stuff, we'll give them strategic stuff. So it's about identifying and not being pushy. We've been around for a long time. We're not a fly-by-night company. A lot of companies just want to make sure that they sell their thing because that's what they do. We got lots of things. We got lots of arrows in our quiver. So we just can take one out any time for a particular thing that appeals to the company where they are right now. Because many companies in South Africa are under huge financial stress. The economy is constrained. Our currency is very, very low. Exchange rate, and they just want to say, listen, we need to reduce our overheads, or you need to be able to provide increase in revenue, or there needs to be some direct value for our leadership and executives to believe that the sustainability can actually deliver value and is not just a grudge purchase that's going to cost money every year, like a compliance thing. So it's our job to be able to prove the business value of sustainability. And that's what we do in every single situation. In terms of coming to the EU or any business in the world, any new territory, we're fortunate in South Africa because there's a very sophisticated commercial environment down here, very ambitious businessmen, men who want to do business outside of the country for obvious reasons, to expose themselves to arbitrage with more valuable exchange rates, as well as to be able to expand their businesses overseas and create value. It's not easy to create, value in South Africa with businesses. So companies are expanding their portfolios overseas. From our perspective, also, we're lucky because King 1, 2, 3, and 4, the framework for integrated reporting and corporate governance, was born in South Africa. Okay, so because of that, we are certainly the leading emerging market in integrated reporting, and probably in the top 5 to 10 developed countries in the world. We are right up there. So we know what we're doing in terms of this stuff. And in terms of the EU, for example, we are spending a huge amount in terms of our own research of those regulations to be able to ensure that we can provide fantastic service to EU companies from South Africa, because it is so new and so complex that we believe we have the skill set and the brains trust in our organization to be able to help the EU companies from South Africa in the equivalent, if not a better way, but also for them to be able to benefit from an emerging market where the currency is less than the currency over there. So we're definitely going to use the currency thing and where we're operating from as a positive, as something we want to benefit from, because in most parts it's not a very beneficial thing to have.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that makes perfect sense, because of course the expansion strategy and everything that's about marketing and sales starts with what you're actually offering, right? And I find that's also the reason why I found it so interesting to do this with you, because I have a very similar view in that, right? And instead of what I see a lot of sustainability companies do, there's nothing wrong with it, but for example, seeing specific regulation, providing a very specific service around that regulation, and that is the company, right? There's nothing wrong with that. Fits with some companies, but this approach where you have a toolkit and you say, like, what is your actual problem? Dive deep into that. Take things from that toolkit to set up a plan, a partnered approach to get you where you want to be. That's what I really like, and what I've moved to as well as a business model. And it works so much more like a partnership approach instead of a service seller, right? Mm. And that is exactly a very might sound like a small difference, but it's a very big difference in reality. Yeah, for sure. So,
and I think, Kiers, sorry, just to go. So the other thing is that because we've also got a big ecosystem of associates, like we've got our core business that I described, our capabilities, but we've got associates on data centers, on extended producer responsibility, packaging, on ethical supply chains. And our clients have come to realize that it's very convenient and comforting to have a partner like ourselves who are accountable for the outcomes of what we do, but also bring in well-vetted service providers and partners that can help them on their journey, because it's our reputation at stake. And I think in terms of the entire thing of what we do, sustainability, the whole old adage that the whole is worth more than the sum of its parts is particularly true, and we're benefiting from that at the moment. Is that each of those parts, one organization just doing carbon footprint assessments, or life cycle assessment, or just one thing at a time, is but being able to do all of what we do and join the dots between all of those things has definitely created a very, very unique selling proposition for ourselves that makes it a lot more. And I think it's being seen in testimony to our, I suppose, hit rate, if you want to talk about it in sales terms, is really proving to be coming true. Yeah,
that's interesting. And is it for you at all, especially when expanding into Europe or new territory, whatever it is? What I hear a lot of companies have as challenges is you're seen as this company from South Africa in this case, right? And that it might be harder to build initial trust. So how do you aim to, of course, once you're talking into the deep stuff, you have a great solution to provide, but how do you even get your foot in the door?
So our strategy for expansion overseas is through partnerships. We have already got a trust element within those relationships, and that's working quite well. We've got a massive ecosystem of business development partners who believe that introducing us to their clients and their contacts is good for their reputation as well, because of our reputation. So that's the one thing. And it's a big part of our strategy overseas is to do that. And that makes it a lot easier because already they're trusted. I think having one meeting and being able to present the proposition that I'm talking, so just getting the meeting is the first thing. Once we have the meeting, I can tell you something right now with what I'm saying in words together with the case studies as well as the presentation, it's quite compelling. And even in Europe and, in areas in the developed world where you would think that, you'd know that there's a huge amount of innovation and competition. I think we do stand out. Just never mind that we're South African with a weak currency, that we are a very innovative company that's put a lot of almost 2 decades of thought into this in the trenches and understanding with a very, I suppose, pragmatic flavor of sustainability that is measurable and implementable. And I think that comes out very soon in the engagement, and companies are buying into it.
That makes a lot of sense. And I thought it was really interesting what you said about the partnerships. I want to add a little bit of that, especially for the audience as well. Because for me, right, what I do is I speak to a bunch of companies selling sustainable solutions on their growth, right? And when you have a bunch of these conversations, I've spoken to over 80 in the last couple of months, you start to see patterns as to what works, what do the really fast expanding and sustainably growing ones do, and what do the ones do that are not growing quite well. And that partnerships, that is exactly an approach that a lot seems to take because there's so many advantages to it, right? You, for example, for you expanding overseas, right? You don't have to go through the hassle of setting up an overseas sales team. You don't have to go through the language barrier. You already have that way inside of a company when that first introduction that is made, right? But what I want to understand, I thought it was very interesting that you said, when going over this partnership, the only reason that that actually works and the only way it works is if the partner is helped by it as well, right? If the partner profits off it as well, which means that something is added to their reputation, their service, whatever it is. How have you been able to do that, to find those right partners and to position yourself as a company worth partnering with?
So the only way to do it, to your point, Kiers, is that it must be worth their while. You can have many conversations with people that say, wow, we love what you do. We'd love you to introduce you to some people, and it's all talk and nothing happens, right? So you've got to formalize it firstly. And we've launched a partnership program, and it needs to be a signed agreement with a proper briefing, with a proper non-disclosure agreement, with proper collateral that can be used to create that first meeting and to get that across the way. It starts off with, you don't know which partners are going to put the big effort in, right? So, but that's a start to the relationship. Let's just see if there's a bit of effort. There's actually some kind of influence in these relationships that these people, because a lot of people just talk. They say, we know this one, and they start name dropping and that one, and then they don't introduce you to anybody. So you want to see who are the doers. And then from there, you'll find some that emerge into very, very proactive partners. And then you're actually happy to share more because they put in more of an effort, So it's really about developing those, even if you have 50 partners to start off with, and they're all going to make one meeting for you or whatever it is. And over time, maybe 5 of them will become extremely active. In fact, they might turn into joint ventures. So it's about feeling your way with partners as well, if that makes sense.
Yeah, makes sense. And when I also, because this is a partnership where the introduction is made, right? But partnerships I also often see are partnerships where another company that, let's say in this example, a European company that's just lacking some of the tools that you have, are able to get that inside of their offering by partnering with you. So really a type of in-depth partnership. Is that something that you're working on as well or not?
I'm happy to entertain that. If, for ourselves, we just want to expand and provide something, that we believe is quite special and impactful. If a company comes to us, and we have been approached by many, right? And you've got to be very careful with partnerships. They're like marriages, if they turn sour, it's emotionally taxing and quite difficult to untangle. So we just need to make sure that they're the right ones. But if there's an organization that is a consultancy that doesn't provide sustainability consulting, but is in data, for example, and we've got a whole another data set that we use to do what we do, we're happy to work with them to bring us data so that we can provide the front ends and the reporting to what we're doing. And they've got the existing client relationships. If it's a consulting company that only does one specific thing and they want to expand into climate and sustainability, then we're happy to entertain a discussion around that. If it's so there's actually many types of organizations in different sectors that we could partner with. The one big thing about our business is that it's got annual recurring and monthly recurring revenue, and for a lot of consultants that's extremely attractive, because being a consultant and having to start from scratch every month and sell is exhausting, and it's quite refreshing to be able to have kind of exposure to a different business model. So, there's a lot of things that attracting companies to become partners with GCX at the moment.
Yeah, exactly. And that is also, again, it comes back to the value you provide, right? It comes back to the partnership approach. Because
Correct.
aside from the fact that it's just, in my opinion, a nicer way of working, just as a business model in and of itself, where you have that recurring revenue over long periods of time, you know exactly what to expect. This creates this really reliable growth, right? It's a really interesting model as opposed to the typical consultant project-based working. So yeah, that's
100%. It's more predictable, and to be honest, never mind the money side of it, is actually provides you with access to much deeper, meaningful relationships with customers, which allows you to then really do what we all prescribe to do, which is really to drive a positive impact of transformation.
Yeah, exactly. Fantastic. It has been a pleasure speaking to you, Kevin. I really like your approach of doing business. I very much share much of the same views, especially in the partnership approach. So I very much appreciate you coming onto the show, telling your story, telling about your very honest experiences. What I would like to ask you, of course, came on the show, you've talked to give everyone the value to talk about your experience. I would love to give you the opportunity to reach specific people. Is there any specific people who you say these people should reach out to me?
Once again, when I talk about who we're dealing with in an organization, the one thing I didn't mention is we get to as fast as possible to the leadership in organization. So if there are leadership and we do those briefings with these organizations, we provide them with the literacy required, the understanding of the value we can bring to it. Any kind of business leader that would like to have a discussion, I would love to talk to them, because I find it fascinating. Firstly, it's a big passion of mine to understand behavioral psychology, especially in the leadership level. And often there's such a openness to engaging in these kinds of discussions, because they're just not doing it because it hasn't been the way of doing business before. But once you open up those discussions, it becomes quite stimulating and quite, to be honest, it's meaningful. I think people have come to the point where just working for commercial gain and a paycheck is sort of not enough in their daily lives, and they start wanting to say, well, how can I wake up in the morning and have be more enthusiastic about things? Well, this is one way to do it, because it's business. It's good business, right? So having those discussions, for me, it's one of my personal passions, to be able to speak to people and see how I can, I had an epiphany 18 years ago, listening to David Suzuki speak when I was with Greenpeace. And he changed me, and I resigned from my job and just started this business, which was Global Carbon Exchange at the time, which was the name of the business, still is, but it's called GCX now. So I always get a thrill out of speaking to people and seeing how they can actually get it. Okay, that's interesting. I can create value, but I can actually do some good things for the planet and for the society at the same time. Yeah, I want a bit of that.
Exactly. I love that. So yeah, thank you very much, Kevin. Thank you.
It's a big pleasure, Kiers. I appreciate you inviting me onto the show, giving me exposure to some other people in different places. And I think my last message is, who do I want to speak to? I want to speak to people who want to speak to me. And I would say, you know what, it's just a meeting. Give us a go. We'll have a good discussion, and who knows, maybe a good partnership into the future.
That's a good one. I'll put the link of your website, and if you're okay with it, I can put your email down here as well, so that people can contact you directly and know where to find you.
Perfect. I appreciate that, Kiers. Thank you so much. It's been lovely to chat to you.
Have a good one.
All right. Take care. Ciao, ciao.